4.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio.
It worked.
It
this
worked.
Time.
God, 131 episodes.
We're finally getting closer
got
to being
down.
professional.
Let's go.
That's what's up, baby.
Dark Side of the Stream, episode 134 this week was my pick. It's a show on Hulu called The Lesson in Murder. We're just going to focus on the first episode this week. There's actually two more about different killers, but you get the gist of what the show is trying to do after just watching one episode. And actually, frankly, after watching just one, I think I'm good with watching just one. Yeah. So basically, the show is set up by a former FBI profiler who now is a professor in Florida, and she trains criminologists to go into the field, whether it's for police or FBI, and profile serial killers.
Tough gig, man.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like, oh God, yeah, dude. And there's, especially with this story, and you can see it kind of in these, and I say kids because they look like kids to me. And I don't know if I've just gotten older.
I noticed that a lot lately too.
But I'm watching this and I'm like, what have they got the Saved by the Bell cast in here going profiling freaking serial killers, right? But then like the first girl's like, yeah, I was a criminal investigator. I mean, she looked like she just turned 21.
I know.
I was a criminal investigator for the United States Navy for 8 years. And I'm like, how old is that girl?
We're getting old, Mike.
What is she eating? What is she drinking?
We're getting
What
old.
is she smoking? I need some of that. Because like I was like, dude. And then they go like every person. I'm like, golly, how the hell are you that experienced in this? So it wasn't the Saved by the Bell cast. These kids actually know what the hell they're talking about. And this former profiler is getting interviews with these killers. The first episode dealt with a guy named William George Davis, who has been convicted of capital murder of 4 patients by injecting air into their whatever they call it, arteries through whatever, I don't know. It's a bunch of medical terms. I don't even try and figure out how to say. But he basically injected air into them, and they would have a stroke because that's what happens, and die. Jay, have you ever been in the hospital for a long time?
Nope.
Not for like babies born or anything like that, but like
no, man,
nothing.
No.
Luckily, me neither. I've never woken up in a hospital.
Fortunate.
That's good. Yeah, for sure. But it's scary. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, when I don't
even like walking into hospitals, I get skeeved out, man. I get clammy, like just even having to be in there. I get nervous.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I get freaked out around doctors, man.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, you don't have your health, you don't have anything, and eventually, both of us are probably going to have some sort of procedure done, whether it's heart or cancer or something like that. I mean, and you have to put your life into these nurses and doctors' hands. Now, after watching something like this, you're like, oh my God. But I will tell you, my mom's a retired nurse and had been a nurse for a long time, in and out of the military, and she, is also kind of a hypochondriac, which I think is kind of whenever you are a nurse, that kind of happens. Like, oh my God, you have this. It could be this. It could be this. It could be this.
Yeah, because you're dealing with it every day.
They deal with it every day and they see it all the time. But at the end of the day, it's nice to kind of have that person in your life that you can be like, hey, what could this be? I always take it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, you come back to these people, men and women that are nurses and doctors, they have your life in their hands. And what's to say that one of them is not some psycho killer guy that's going to inject air into your veins and kill you?
Or like some nurse who maybe he had a wife and the guy he's taking care of banged his wife. I don't know. It would be, I could see me on the bed be like, no, not this guy.
It's so funny you go there. I wouldn't even thought of that. Until
that's an everyday worry in my world, dude.
It's an everyday worry for Jay. All right, well, we're figuring out Jay's fears today on Dark Side of the Stream, episode 131. It continues next on 104.7 The Cave. Mike, the intern, Jay Stevens, back in the studio, still laughing from the previous break. We found out that Jay is.
We made our own documentary.
Jay is scared of
husbands and
hospitals, ERs, but he's also scared of screwing with the wrong woman, and then eventually that woman's husband is a doctor and finds him under the knife and gets him back.
Who do we have here?
Yeah,
Mr. Singer Boy.
It is a small town, Jay, so just keep that in mind when you go out and do what it is you do. All right, so back to episode 1 of The Lessons in Murder, which should not be confused with the actual movie called Lesson in Murder, because I was trying to find it when I was like, okay, let's watch this, and I was like, what is this movie? I would never do this, and then found.
Well, you told me it was about a nurse killing people.
Essentially, yes, the episode 1, there's different episodes. They focus on different killers and their motives, but we're focusing on episode 1, Will Davis, who brought up in a kind of lower to middle class family in Texas. Seemed like he was a smart kid, but there were warning signs. They have an interview with a woman who was the cousin of a woman he dated in his teens and early 20s, or at least until he went to college. She was a couple years younger than him, but he was extremely possessive to the point where they actually got a restraining order against him. And what he do when they did that? He tried to crash his car into their house, but it missed and hit a tree.
Red flag, right?
When the woman goes to interview him in the prison, he brings it up because he starts talking about all the psychological problems he was having, and he goes, "That's why I tried to crash my car into a tree," which he still at this point won't take any kind of like, okay, you know what? This is what I did. She pissed me off. I went after her. I just crashed my car into a tree outside of her house. Yeah, that really works. But you can obviously tell this guy is not going to say like, I did this. He blames everything else. He blames the system. He blamed the hospital system on how they wouldn't give him enough hours and money, and all the, the execs were making all the money. Again, he was buying all these things for himself. He was buying a big house. He was putting in a pool, nice car. Nurses, especially in the beginning, don't make a whole lot of money, especially to put in a $40,000 pool in your backyard. I can't do that. And I'm sure my mom couldn't do that even at the time where she's making a lot of money. So again, that was his own problem and stuff that he created. So eventually, and this was actually pretty crazy, she gets him, she being the woman that interviewed him in prison, to admit to another murder of which he wasn't convicted. The first one he did, which was a 96-year-old woman, and he says was a mercy killing, which I call BS on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's well, this guy was kind of crazy, but you do hear other stories of where nurses will be like feeling bad, the patient's, in pain, can't help, and then they assist with.
That's not your call to play God.
Yeah, it's not.
But no. I think this was his trial and error setup, because if he goes after a 96-year-old woman, who's going to fight the fact that she just passed away? It happens all the time. Yeah. So that gave him an opportunity
test the waters
a
little bit, test his little theories.
I will hold the next thought for the next break, because I thought this was the most telling thing about him when he was doing the interview with this woman. And we'll talk about that next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. (104.7 The Cave). Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It's Dark Side of the Stream, episode 131, discussing episode 1 of the Lessons in Murder show on Hulu. So we're talking about Will Davis. There's all this lead up to the woman getting to interview him in prison to kind of figure out the motive, because that was one of the goals. They, as a team, they said, what are we trying to get out of this? The first thing there was motives. Second thing was to find out if there were any more victims, which they did.
Yeah, they did.
And the third, to give some closure to some of the family, because in fact, they do interview one of his victims that he did try to kill the same way, who survived it, but now is paralyzed on the left side of his body. That was a tough watch, because, I mean, you've got to be angry. His life completely changed overnight for something that really, again, the detective in this had a really good thought. And he goes, when you go in for a major surgery, they look at everything about you, your height, your weight, if you have any past medical issues, all this stuff. So
previous
then
surgeries,
they put it into the system. They say, okay, with all these factors, Jay, if you went for a bypass, you have a 97% success rate. And that's based on looking at all the factors, your strength, your heart, your age, all that stuff. So all these people that were dying shouldn't have died at all. Some think the motive was to, or at least the detective thought, because all these patients that he went after weren't his patients, they were someone else. And so when they got him on camera going into these rooms, he had no business on going there. Like, they got this dude. So the detective thinks that he wanted to make it look like everyone else was failing while he was trying to
He
get
was
this
the good
promotion. And
one.
he was the one
Yeah.
that was saving them all.
Trying to sabotage
Yeah,
coworkers.
playing the
It's
hero.
common thing. Yeah.
But again, I think this comes back to some sort of just weird, unfilled void in himself. When he describes killing someone, he describes it as if it was a drug, this euphoria that helped him. Like, for example, some people do this. I do it. I know when you get into a situation in your life, and you especially for someone that wants to be in control, and you try to control what you can control, but eventually life happens, and there's things that happen that you can't control them. So what I do is I love, cleaning the house, reorganizing something, building something, getting my hands on something that I can control
Fair enough.
start to finish, so that I'm able to kind of process what's happening while controlling something. Could be small, could be just going, like, if I'm angry, I'm gonna just go mow the yard and do it now. And then once I'm done, I'm like, cool. Working out works the same way, going for a run, meditation, yoga, all that stuff, it works the same way. Normal people, that's how they react to life stressors. We all deal with them. We all have issues. We got financial problems. We got relationship problems, whatever it is.
You deal with it.
We all have our own way of dealing with it. Some people look to drugs and alcohol, some people meditation, but this guy, it seemed, went to murder.
Really weird.
And when he did it, he felt it. And the way he described it, it seems to me that he got off on it just like any other serial killer would have got off on it. He blames the financial stressors in his life, but I just think that's a scapegoat. I don't think I think deep down, as a reborn Christian, at least that's the way he claims, he says that he can't I don't think he can come to grips with the fact that he did this because he was so out of control. He needed something to control and have some power. And that's why he did it. He almost says it without saying
it. With a lot of serial killers, the power control thing.
Yeah. And so I think he just can't admit it to himself, which is dishonest. So if he is claiming to be a born again Christian, you got to be completely honest.
Yeah, you would figure right now, hey, the jig is up. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe he's not quite flipped. So let's not let him out.
Well, definitely not getting out. This happened in Texas. I don't know if is he on death row?
I don't know, man. Texas, they don't play down there, man.
No, they do not. He is definitely he has been sentenced to death 2 hours during deliberation. Didn't take long, but they automatically appealed it. So we'll see what happens. But it is Texas, and they do not mess around. We'll come back with our review of the show next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike, the intern, Jay Stevens, back in the studio one more time to discuss The Lesson in Murder on Hulu, episode 1 about Will Davis. I would give this, I'm torn because I like the idea of it, because they do a really good job of kind of breaking down how profilers work and what they do.
Which is kind of cool to see the inside world.
But at the same time, it was so juiced up Hollywood. Like, it almost felt like it was a reality show. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought it was crazy the people they did get to interview, more specifically, like Will Davis's ex-wife, her perspective, the girl that he dated's cousin, his victims, and then of course the killer himself. But yeah, I would go with probably 2.5 corrupt nurses on this. Just, I didn't know, I knew about this guy, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. It definitely opened my eyes. It's not the first time we've had a killer nurse go on a rampage, but it's scary stuff. So yeah, if you like that sort of thing, go into it. Jay, I hope you got something that's not in the vein of murder.
I am going totally the different route, and it's a nice feel good. It's a double bonus because it's free on YouTube, this documentary,
and it's short.
It's all right. It's not that bad, maybe an hour and a half.
Okay,
but it's a great do-it-yourself success story. Hey, we'll figure it out as we go along. The story of Star Studios in Wisconsin, where Butch Vig and another guy started a little crappy studio
in Madison,
and it became the hub and changed the world musically. With Nirvana's Nevermind, a bunch of other albums. A little teeny brick building in Wisconsin, you would have never known what's going on in there, and these guys were changing the world with music. So it's on YouTube. It's like if you search Star Studios documentary, you'll see it. Great, it's fun watch. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about this little mysterious brick studio in Wisconsin that they built themselves.
You can actually still see the building in
It's a
Wisconsin.
great story.
Yeah.
And then how things just went from them trying to figure out how to record bands into blowing up to huge and getting $100,000 offers to record bands.
And Butch also a member of the band Garbage
Yeah.
too. So
Talks all about that as well.
He was definitely one of the it guys in that scene because of what he did with Nevermind.
They didn't know what they were doing, and they just started plugging stuff in and buying cheap equipment. And if they could find a $10 microphone here, they'd figure out how to use it. And next thing you know, top producer in the world. So,
man, good stuff. All
good
right,
story.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. And then I've got one pick for next week that hopefully we can get into for a while. Again, this is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 131. You can stream it every Thursday at 9 a.m. online, 1047thecave.com, or on our Facebook page or YouTube channel. Just search Dark Side of the Stream. You can stream it as a podcast on our 104.7 The Cave app or listen to it live on the air every Thursday at 9 or 6 p.m. during Jay's show. I'm Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens reminding you we watch movies so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.